Hello, everybody. It is your Professor Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this master class, I was asked to do a follow up of last week's episode of, how we could force mistakes out of our opponents. It was brought to my attention. Not everybody had flying, teleporting, shooting, run and char. Stormcast have a bit of everything. They're a cookie cutter, toolboxy army. You make a nice little thing like, oh, I need to go and make gingerbread men. Well, I have the tools to make gingerbread men, and I can fight all the orcs because I have this unit. So, we're gonna go for a little bit more basic in this master class, which I'm a little conflicted calling it a master class, but here we are. Here are some things that you as the player can do right after this recap. Gotcha, huh? Like and subscribe while you're here. Please. We love you. You're great students. But again, our main thing last week was making it seem like every option was the right option. You in your list building, in your deployment, in your movement. You put out so many choices. Your opponent cannot possibly make the right one because they'd have to take everything, and you cannot take everything. Age of Sigmar, people joke and say it's 4D chess, but it really is. And the fact that you have to have pieces to sacrifice, you have to have your power pieces, but not everyone knows what it is. And if you have multiple of the same thing and they just can't kill it all of a sudden you're in a great spot. And that goes into my other thing here too, for my first point of buff orders, specifically spells. Now hear me out. Follow me, camera guy. When you are playing your army, you're looking for magic, you're looking for buffs, looking for damage, looking for whatever. You as the player of your own army, you're the pilot, should know, especially if you're doing competitive stuff, you should know what spells you need when. All right, you've got a priority in your list. Like, I got 1, 2, 3 spell attempts. I know I need to do like a Mystic Shield, an Arcane Bolt, and a buff spell. And for me, it's especially if you have more spell casts than your opponent has unbinds in range. You're keeping the important spell last. So it's like a mini game. It's a mind game in that you're like, okay, do I put out like I need the Mystic Shield, but I can live without it. Is that my first spell to see if we can get my opponent to waste an unbind. And you still pick a good spell, a good enough spell, but it's not the most important. Because again, there are finite resources being used against you, and it's your job as the player to make them have to make the hardest decisions possible where they only have 2 unbinds. And you've got a couple pluses to casting. Do we even want to try to stop a Mystic Shield? Do we even want to go for this other buff spell? It's the mind game with them. And you've already, you already told them all the stuff your army does. You're not hiding it as a secret that you can do something. In fact, my second tip here is going to be when you're explaining your army, as long as you do it within like the pregame time, why not over explain it a little bit? And I say that in I will tell you everything my army can do. I've got the whole spiel down, right? Everything I could, I have evocators, in 2.0, I had a hero combo that could make them autocast their spell, and they could put it on themselves, on a big block of sequitors, onto anything sacrosanct, but by the time I say what all this stuff does, I haven't actually told them what I'm going to do with it. Just what it can do. If that makes sense. I'm not being slimy. I'm not lying. I'm not saying my army can do X when it really can do Y. I'm telling them it does A, B, C, D, and E. All right? I got my whole spiel. It's timed. It's distinct. I walk them down through the printed out army list I bring at the table for my opponent to peruse. That doesn't mean I'm going to tell them I'm going to do a combination of C and E. Oh, like for a while in second edition, with the old Stormcast book, there was a whole craze about putting the Evocator's spell buff that they had from their War Scroll onto a unit of Sequitors. I hated that. Hated it, hated it, hated it. There was no reason Evocators could not use their own buff better than Sequitors. And be like, oh, well, you could have them reroll hits. You could take a battalion to reroll hits, saves, and wounds. That's great. Um, they didn't have the rend or the damage evocators could because it was based around special weapons and a sequitur unit. And evocators do mortal wounds. There was no reason for me not to super buff my very important unit and then send the sequiturs off somewhere else. For me, the player. I would tell my opponent, though, this spell can go on the evocators, it can go on the big sequitur blob, and because of all the talking heads on the internet with the mass hysteria, like now what? We're at dragons, so you're gonna kill everybody, right? That's where we're at, dragons. People are going to freak out and get in their own head just because I said all the options my thing could do. I didn't even like do anything yet. I didn't deploy. I'm just going over my list. I'm like, yeah, I can do this, that, the other thing. And then when you're on the table, you do a different thing and they're like, what? Why didn't you do this? You should have done this. The internet said this. I'm like, well, because I was never going to do that because that was the obvious play. And I'm just going to move on with my life and be okay. And I'm going to keep my evocators around to kill you. Ready? Yeah, great. Um, this goes to another thing. I'm saying, draw out stuff to stop your buffs, make people have to make that decision, make people start thinking about all the things your army can do, but not what you actually want to do. My third tip is going to actually be more of a deep thinking thing. I know this is 7 minutes in, we're deep thinking already. This isn't going to be that long of a class, don't worry. But the deep thought is, there's a saying, I forget where it's from. Someone in the comments probably can go at me and name the philosopher, and I'll look like an idiot and I'll have a gotcha moment. But, nothing ever happens the same way twice. And if you go into a game, type A, you're like, I need to do this and this and this, and I win. Eventually, people are going to learn, or you're going to run into someone whose philosophy on the game and how they play and what their army does is so counter to what you are trying to do, you are going to be dead in the water before the game even starts. You haven't even thought about what they could do. Like, yeah, I need to move on to this objective. I need to get my buffs up. I need to go in here, have rerolling save, mystic shield, this, that. But you're not playing the game. You're not playing the battle plan. You're playing your own army. You cannot always do that. That's where we go from good players to great here. In that you need to be adaptable. It's true. Just nothing's gonna happen the same way. You will never. This is a dice game. One day your dice could be with you, like, oh, this plan is amazing. I just ran up and tabled on top of one. And then you go to play the next game and you're like, well, I made a third of my hit rolls, a third of my wound rolls. They made all their save rolls. My whole army is so overextended, I'm doomed. And that's going to be rough. And there's going to be times where you're going to make a judgment call and like, yeah, 10 times out of 10, I would make this play. Like my Living City army. I know I need to, in order to do my thing, be able to kill a screen. Usually it's about 10 wounds of something. And then I move on to kill the thing behind the screen. That's how that works. I need to be able to have enough stuff in range to shoot the thing in the shooting phase to then move on about my way. But where I am going to pop up around the table and what I'm going to target generally will be different. I'm lucky in that I listen, I've played 5 games in the last week and a half. That's stupid. Most people get 5 games and you get like a game a month unless you're at a tournament. I've just been playing pickup games online and around. Um, not everyone's lucky like that. I'm very fortunate. So I've accrued a lot of game knowledge to know like what other people's armies do. So I can adjust my playstyle to that. And that's really my playstyle is that I can go in knowing not everything's gonna happen the same way. And I can pick them apart from different angles at different times. I think I'm gonna do one thing. Well, I've already practiced doing this other thing a few times. It might work here. It's not like I have like 4 or 5 plays drawn up in the playbook. Like, all right, yep, I see it. We've got Iron Jaws, Bloodtooth. We're gonna run 31 Alpha. All right, team 31 Alpha. 1, 2, 3. I'm not doing that. What I am doing is adapting my playstyle to the situation I'm in. All right, and sometimes it's gonna look silly, like a game today. I threw a unit of 5 Vindictors in a desperate attempt to try to tag someone's hero in a battle plan where heroes were the only things that could score objectives, and if I murked the hero, their only hero, I won the game. I was hoping to at least hurt it. I failed horribly, and instead of trying to then, because my opponent just walked away because all the objectives were in the middle of the board, I was like, you know what? This is an easy way for me to score my grand strategy of hold the line, because he literally ignored 130 points of my army to go fight the rest of me, and they weren't doing anything anyway. They were just gonna get shot and get mowed down by Stormcast dragons, actually. So I'm like, I'm just gonna leave them here because it'll help me score my battle tactic of have 2 units in the deployment zone, and I'm just gonna roll with it and adapt through that, because that's the other thing too. Sometimes I make that charge, and sometimes I do good damage, and then they have to respond, which is great, and they're on the back foot. But when it doesn't work out, because not everything happens the same way twice, I'm not stressing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. We're growing this community here. We're going to make you into tournament players yet, if I have my say. Yeah, at least go 3-2 and have a fun time. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I like to say what I like to say at the end of every video here. Class dismissed. Bye.